Tanto, se
Can you hear me
presente?
Yeah, thank you.
Perfetto.
We're having this debate in the UK about the best way, but the way the debate is being framed in the UK is much more about looking at the problems that prostitutes themselves experience in their work. And that seems to be something that it's really, really important to open out, because it seems as though some of the debate in Italy is very much normalising sex work, as you're calling it, as though it was just another kind of work. And I think it's really important to look at what makes sex work different from other kinds of work, particularly for women. When I was researching my book, I looked at places on the internet where men who buy sex from women, we don't call them whores in the UK, we call them women who work as prostitutes. And I think that is quite important. Maybe we are a bit too politically correct, but it reminds us that these women may have made other choices and may go on to make other choices later. I looked at the places where men who buy sex from prostitute women talk about the women. And the misogyny is shocking. The way that it's not just about objectification, it's really about, treating women as non-human. As you were saying, we have to remember that women are human. And this so often seems to be forgotten when the woman is working as a prostitute. And just very, very briefly, I just want to mention the violence and abuse that prostituted women so often experience. These statistics come from the UK. I wonder if they're really that different here. One study found that 85% of prostitutes in their samples reported physical abuse in the family, before they decided to go into sex work, and 45% reported sexual abuse. One researcher found that a majority of the prostitute women she interviewed had become involved with prostitution before the age of 16. I mean, how can a woman make a choice to enter sex work if she's so young? Researchers have found that all the young women in their samples who were involved in prostitution had a problem with alcohol misuse, and that a majority used hard drugs. One study in the north of England found that 96% of the women working in prostitution were using heroin, and 84% said their reason for going into prostitution was to get money for drugs. Now, I don't want to position prostituted women as marginal, as a sort of subculture. We know they can be any kind of woman. The prostituted women I talked to were women with degrees, were articulate women. But I think it's important to say how this kind of work does differ. The kind of violence, the kind of objectification, the kind of humiliation that is so often attendant on sex work. And I know that there are sex workers who speak out and say that wasn't my experience, but I think we have to listen to those women that say, as one woman who's prostituted said to me when I interviewed for my book, basically, when you agree to be a prostitute, you've agreed to be raped sometimes for money. This is one of the realities that we have to face when we're talking about what women experience. And I think it's really important not to just normalise it and talk about it as another branch of work, but be honest about the cost that some of these women are paying.
Beatriz.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry to say that I'm very disturbed to be sitting down here with you. I'm talking about prostitution this way without prostitutes being here sitting down and talking for themselves.
Well, that's why I used their voices.
No, you use nothing.
That's why this book is full of prostituted women's voices, because I wanted to show their experiences.
No, because what you're saying through the words you just quoted is basically, oh, they've been abused when they were young, so that's why they became prostitutes. I mean, we could also say about working on a supermarket. How many girls on a supermarket when they are 18 really wanted to do that job? No one. How many? Let me When we talk about the relationship between sexual abuse and prostitution, what is disturbing is not prostitution, it's sexual abuse. Why when
there's also links. No, there are links.
What is amazing is that basically half of the female population, and I include myself now in the female population, and the ones that we've been constructed as women, right? Well, sorry? Okay. Half of the female population have been abused. Well, Of course, some of them are prostitutes. Some of them get married. Some of them work on a supermarket. I mean, I think that is very, I think politically is very touchy what we're doing here. And I really don't want just like stay silent or say something, you know, just to contribute to this way of constructing prostitutes. Because I think that we really need to start listening to sex workers themselves.
Well, that's what I did for this book. I sat down with strippers and prostitutes.
Why don't...
You know, I'd love to sit here with, you know, and here there seem to be sex workers in the audience. Let's turn to the audience and hear from them. Let's have the debate, you know, let's stop talking and hear from them.
Why don't we talk about all the
Allora io volevo sentire Michela. No, finisci Beatriz, prego.
Non-well-paid jobs. I mean, you know, I mean... This
well, we also do. Feminists also do talk about those. But we were asked at this point about prostitution.
I would say
we talk about work,
I would say myself that sex workers, for me, are somatic workers, are workers that work with their bodies, and that is something that happens in many other fields. For instance, if you give massage, if you are an actress, you work with your body, and it doesn't, just because there is a stupid client that is treating you, telling you, oh, or whatever, it doesn't mean that you believe that. I mean, you get it into a scenario, and you're playing a role. It doesn't mean that you're exactly that. I mean, I would say that for me, it would be equally humiliating to get married within a society like this one. You know what I mean?